Okay, so today we're going to do something from a culture standpoint, okay? So I had been planning this video for a while. I've been doing a lot of research on this, and honestly, my research is not yet complete. But with the soft release of the Philippine project, I feel it's something that we need to talk about, okay? The Philippine project is going to be aimed at Tier 3 and Tier 4 cities, and it's actually titled PHC. Capital P, lowercase h for Philippines, C for course, Philippines course. It is not OKC, okay? There has been some mislabeling going on out there. Also, you will find the PHC teachers on the Free Talk rankings list. So that's another clue that it's a separate program because official kids course teachers do not appear on the official rankings list. Okay, now, here's the next thing. Tier cities. So China generally separates their cities into 4 tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4, and it's generally based on income. The government has not released any strict guidelines on how they tier out the cities. There are well over 600 cities in China that are tiered, and Tier 1 cities are the biggest. They are the most populated. They are the ones with the most money. So think Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, stuff like that. Now let's talk about Shanghai. My brother-in-law lives in Shanghai. Shanghai alone has a population to equal the country of Australia. Shanghai alone has a GDP almost equal to that of the Philippines. Our students as official kids course teachers are coming from Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. These are families with enough money to afford it. So why open a Philippines course? Well, the Tier 3 and Tier 4 cities, of which there are many more, they just can't afford it. So it's about hitting affordability for families that just can't afford a native speaking teacher. Believe me, they would want a native teacher. They just can't afford it. So we don't have to worry because there will always be people in Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities who want native English teachers, okay? They do not want non-native accents. So let's go into some of the info about the tier. So I have to check my notes on this one. So the classification, we have something called Yitai Global, a financial magazine that published a tiered list of the most commercially charming cities in China. Okay, so about 338 of the cities are above prefectural level. Okay, these are cities that make more. And they now have some new tiers coming out. They classify 6 tiers. Tier 1, new Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4, and Tier 5. Okay? So it's also, these are the ones from the Yitai Global List. The Yitai Global List has 5 tiers, but they're only going to read some of the places from Tier 1, new Tier 1, and Tier 2. So in Tier 1, there is Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen. In new Tier 1, there is Chengdu, Hangzhou, Wuhan, Chongqing, Nanjing, Tianjin, Suzhou, Xi'an, Changsha, Shenyang, Qingdao, Zhengzhou, Dalian, Dongguan, Ningbo. And in Tier 2, there are Xiamen, Fuzhou, Wuxi, Hefei, Kunming, Harbin, Jinan, Foshan, Changchun, Wenzhou, Shijiazhuang, Nanning, Changzhou, Quanzhou, Nanchang, Guiyang, Taiyuan, Yantai, Jiaxing, Nantong, Jinhua, Zhuhai, Huizhou, Suzhou, Haikou. A name I cannot pronounce. It's probably the capital of, in the news there's been that whole Muslim region that's having major issues with the government and whatever. It looks like something like that because it's got a U and umlaut. If you know German, the umlaut is the 2 dots above a U. R, another U with an umlaut, MQI. Shaoxing, Zhongshan, Taizhou, and Lanzhou. So Palfish official kids course native teachers will be aimed at these locations. Let me go to the financial list now, because that's going to be the main thing that I want to talk about is the financial listings. Okay, so my notes are separated into categories, so I have to pick them out, It was very difficult to gather all this information because there isn't a lot available, really. And then I had to translate other things. I had to listen to things in Chinese. Okay, so China is home to much smaller, lesser-known cities like Gannan in the north-central province of Gansu, with a population of 710,000, whose GDP in 2016 was $2 billion US dollars, whereas Shanghai's GDP per capita was 469 billion. So we're going 2 billion to 469 billion between Gansu and Shanghai. Per capita income for annual 2000 GDP per capita income was 17,000 US, and Ganman's was about 2,876. So that's just to give you an idea of the price difference. Whereas Shanghai's got 17,000 GDP per capita income, Gannan has only 2,876. That's a major difference, okay? So another thing about the tier system is how people invest throughout China, where you're going to advertise. If you're selling a high-end product, you're not going to be advertising in Gansu. You're going to be in Beijing or Shanghai. If you're going to be marketing official kids course, you're going to be doing it in places with money. And the Philippines course, you're going to be doing it in places that are more lower income. So traditionally, tier 1 cities are the largest and the wealthiest, okay? But depending on whom and which organization you ask, there are now 6, 8, 14, or even 18 city tier categories in China. Half rankings, such as tier 1.5 or 2.5, are becoming very common in the real estate market. Okay? Most commonly, cities referred to as tier 1.5 or emerging first tier cities represent those that do not equal the traditional first tier cities, but stand out beyond the traditional tier 2 cities. So the defining criteria of these tiers, it's so hard to describe. Professional opinion continues to differ on what parameters are used to define each city tier. According to the SCMP, exclusive on city tiers, most factors used to define city tier falls within 3 macroeconomic categories: GDP, population, and politics. The cities are then allocated a tier based on the average of these 3 factors. Okay? So based on the tiers, you'll see a higher concentration of commercial resources, cities' pivotability, the citizen vitality, lifestyle diversity, and flexibility for the future. So for foreign investors going into China, the tier system can help you see where you want to work, where you want to market, where you want to build factories to have cheap labor probably. It's actually very hard to fully describe this, but in the most basic form, and this is something that really only China uses, this whole tier system. Tier 1 and tier 2 cities are where our official kids course students are coming from. And tier 3 and tier 4 cities are the ones that are going to be offered the Philippines course. Now, some people are concerned. Oh, well, if they have a cheaper option, don't you think tier 1 and tier 2 cities, once they find out about it, will go there? Not really, because people with money don't want non-native English speakers teaching them. They want people with the correct accent. So personally, I'm not worried about that. There will always be a market for native English speakers. There will always be somebody hiring us to teach. And Palfish has stated over and over again, they are not getting rid of the official kids course. They are just expanding, which is a good business thing to do. They are expanding into a lower income market, which would be the tier 3 and tier 4 cities. We all know companies, if they want to thrive, they need to expand, they need to build up. And that's one way to do it. Are you going to take lower pay to teach these kids with lower income? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to take a lower salary? Probably not. You know, a lot of people, we're doing this to make our own money to survive, and it's expensive to survive in most Western countries. We need the pay we're getting in order to be able to pay for our bills. So we really can't feasibly accept a lower pay tier. But Filipinos, if you live in the Philippines or if you ever visited, you'll know that they have a lower standard of living, a lower cost of living. So they can be paid less because they don't need to spend as much. You cannot expect every country to pay their workers on the same level as Americans are paid or as the British are paid or whatever. You have to look at the financial status of a country. Sometimes these articles come out about how teachers are being paid, not teachers, workers are being paid cents on the hour or whatever. But you also need to look at how they're paid generally if they work for a native company and not a foreign company. If you find out that they are working for a foreign company for about the same or less than they would with a native company in their country, then yeah, that's a very bad business. That's not very ethical. But if you find out that, oh, hey, actually the average minimum wage in that country is lower than what they're being paid, then it's different. Now, I calculated, and I'm not sure what the minimum wage is in the Philippines, but I know what the minimum wage is over here in Taiwan, and it's 180 new Taiwan dollars. The Philippine starts at 180 Philippine dollars, which is Philippine dollars and new Taiwan dollars are close, you know? So I can only assume that 180 Philippine dollars is pretty close or a little bit above minimum wage for the Philippines, but I have not looked that portion up. So they are getting paid what their country needs for a salary, you know? And some people think that's unfair. They're getting too low. I don't have an opinion on that. I just have, you look at what the minimum wage is there and you base it off of that. Okay? You also need to understand that the Philippines is generally pretty poor. I've been to Manila and it's not always the nicest place, especially in some areas. So they're going to have a lower income. They're not going to need as high of a pay as us, which means they are perfect for lower income families. They can afford them. And I have a lot of friends from the Philippines that went to school with me here in Taiwan, or they live in the US now, and they don't have bad accents. They speak pretty well, a good majority of them. Palfish already said that they're going to look for Filipino teachers with pretty neutral accents. So that's going to help, you know? It's scary. I know. I can understand because we look at all the stuff that's going around in the hiring forums where other companies did that, where they hired a bunch of Filipinos and then they fired a ton of their native speakers. But this is, although they are using the official Kids Course material, the 4.0 material, that's because they have a partnership with Big English, Pearson. They kind of have to. But the thing is, it's different teachers aimed at different income levels in China. China is not universally rich. It's not every single person in the country has the same amount of money. There are people who just don't have that much money and can't afford a native English speaker as a teacher. Those are the people that the Philippine teachers are going to be aimed at. And for the most part, we shouldn't need to worry, okay? I hope this little bit of an explanation into what this whole tiered city thing is helps to understand what the Philippine project is. If you have any questions, you can let me know. As I continue my research, I can answer more and more questions, but it is a very difficult subject to research, okay? Bye-bye.